I became a nurse as a second career.
Hmm.
And for my first career, I used to work in higher education. And, you might remember this because you're in LA so much. But when my wife and I got married, we moved to LA. This was like in 2003. And that was the time when I first met Guru and Santo.
Hmm.
And I was still looking for a job. And Loyola Marymount University is close to the
Right.
academy with the big fountain.
Yep.
And I applied there because I was in my mind, I was like, well, if I'm going to go out all the way this way anyway, because it's about 60 or 70 miles. But if I'm going to go this far anyway, I might as well, if I can work here, then I can go to classes in the evening
Yeah.
and I can, like combine them. And
Yeah.
then later on, and then what would actually happen is now it's been many years since I worked there, so I don't have a problem talking about this, but I would block off my Thursday mornings and just tell our secretary that I had like meetings. Like I
Right.
have meetings all morning on campus,
Yep.
and it was so close. So I'd go down to the academy, I'd change, I'd come back and change in the bathroom, and then come back in. So that was great. And then when I did become a nurse, it was a similar thing where I always made it where I had Thursdays and Fridays off because I wanted to go to that either well, mostly by that time it was a Thursday morning class.
Hmm.
And I was just able to stack my days and arrange my days, because I don't know how your airline shifts were, but nursing is a lot of nursing is 12-hour shifts. So
Right. Yeah.
even now, well, now I'm in a management position, so I'm a little bit more daytimes, but I do have some flexibility. But now it's so interesting how a lot of people dedicated to either martial arts or whatever it is that they do
Hmm.
really will fit it into, really fit it into their lives.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the reason why the reason why you're able to talk about a wife and I'm not is because I had that approach where I put martial art before everything, and
Yeah.
I literally had an old girlfriend say that to me once with me. She says that she says that I never made her number one. That that martial art was always number one, and then sometimes she was number two ahead of Eastern, but then sometimes she was number three behind Eastern. But she says
Yeah.
I never made her number one. Nobody could knock martial art out of that that position. So that's why I'm here today with you at 8:30 in the morning.
But that's not, I mean, that's true, I think, of anyone that's wholly committed either to a craft or a passion or a
Yeah,
part of themselves. Because
yeah.
I remember, back in the day when I was a DJ, someone, I looked up to this one kind of local DJ around the area, and he said something like that to me once. He was like, if you're going to do this, it has to, is it going to be like the top thing in your life?
Hmm.
Because with the hours and with
Hmm.
the pay and,
Right.
people like to, they see whatever they see on TV or hear on the radio, but it's really like just like martial arts, very kind of unglamorous um, life most of the time, even for the
Yeah.
most, established people. But, I think that's, I just think that's very common with anyone that's, so dedicated to aspects of their life. Mark Chang just put up something on Instagram yesterday, or maybe Facebook or something, and he was showing like a staff form, and he put up like a comment that just said, if you don't make time, it will be stolen from you.
Hmm.
And I just found that to be so true. Like the things that, the things that you're passionate about,
Yeah.
including myself.
But see, that's the
Um,
operative word right there. You just
yeah.
said make time.
Hmm.
I used to teach people that this never happens. Who's there? Time. Time never shows up.
Yeah.
Nobody has time for
Yes,
anything. People make time. So when you
absolutely.
shift your way of thinking, when you shift it to, well, I'm never going to have the time, I have to consciously make the time.
Yes.
That's how you move ahead,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's interesting too, because I think this happens in martial arts also, but we can get either too loose sometimes, but it's important to be specific with our words, like with what you said. Um, because the other day, so a couple months ago, I decided to take like a nurse forensic exam class. So this is for victims of sexual assault. And it was very, very intense. It was like an amazing class. And some of my staff was asking me about it. They're like, what did you think of the class? And I was like, it's incredible. You should take it. And someone said, well, do you think you're going to do it? And I was like, no, frankly, I just don't think I have the willingness to do it. I just don't think I'm willing to dedicate the time. And she laughed and she was like, that's interesting. You say you don't have the willingness. So I was like, yeah, it's true. I mean, for me to do that on top of everything else that I'm doing, I just honestly, I don't think I'm willing to put that extra time. It's not that I can't, because if you really want to, you can make the time.
Right.
And that was an interesting thing, I think, for me to highlight that, you know, even for myself, it's not that I don't have the time. It's just that I'm not willing to do it. And I have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other things too, is like, if I really want to do something, I'm sure I've heard this a lot, and I'm sure you've heard this tons of times, people that will say like, I've always wanted to meet Guru Dan. I've always wanted to train. My life's goal is to go out to Los Angeles and train at the academy.
Yeah.
And we all certainly understand the circumstances and, you know, limitations, but at the same time, I feel like there's so many opportunities.
Yeah. How is it possible in 2020 that you can see a comment on Facebook that says, wow, I've always wanted to meet him?
Yes.
How is that possible? Right.
Well, with the amount of time that he travels too. I mean,
yeah. And the amount of time that I mean, come on. But when I was going out in '83, I had well-intentioned friends who said to me, do you know these people? Like, no. They go, do you know what they do or what they're going to teach or what you're going to learn? I was like, no. They go, well, why are you going? I go, that's how you find out.
Yeah.
Right. You know, yeah. I didn't see it, Joey, as a big adventure. I really didn't.
Yeah.
It was just logical to me. It's like, you know, I remember saying to myself, Dwight, you can only get so much of Jeet Kune Do if you keep paying respects on July 20th to the deceased source. Because as I told you, I would go out to Seattle to Lakeview Cemetery every July 20th.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I started doing that in 1980. I went out in 80, I went out in 81, I went out in 82. But in 83, see, camp started on July 25th.
Huh.
So I said, you know what? Enough of that. Go to the living source of Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
Which happened to be, in my estimation, Dan Inosanto. So in 1983, that's when I stopped going out to Bruce Lee's gravesite every July 20th.
Wow. Is it hard to get to?
The Lakeview? No. It's probably, I think Jimi Hendrix is buried there also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All right. So I think those are probably the two most visited. I mean, back then, I don't know how it is now, but I'm sure that Taki Kimura still takes care of the gravesite and what have you. But even if you went, because my very first time there, I was there twice in 1980 because I was on hiatus from work, and I spent about 3 or 4 months in Seattle. So my very first trip was not in July, but there's evidence that somebody had visited. There's always flowers there, always, right? But then on July 20th, it's ridiculous, the amount of flowers that are there. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But that was just part, you know, that was part of the journey, part of the whole process. You know, you're a fan. Some people would say you're a fanatic, right? But that was just part of the thing. I mean, you know, Bruce Lee had a literal and virtual impact on me the very first time I saw him move, because like we talked about, you know, I was a Kung Fu film fan, like almost everybody else of my age in Barbados. And so we were used to, Bay Logan actually talks about it. He makes a very good point about it in his book, Bruce Lee and I.
Mhm.
the style of fighting in Kung Fu films in the early 1970s was all long fist stuff. These
Mhm.
drawn out battles, you know, between like one guy against 30 people and what have you. And when Bruce Lee came on the scene, that literally changed.
Yeah.
And it became more like pat, pat, bang, and that guy's done with, and you move on to the next guy.
Mhm.
It was still multiple opponents, but it wasn't this, and everything was just a little bit more compact and what have you. It was a different style of choreography,
Yeah.
and people have heard me say this many times before. I sat up in my chair and I go,
Excuse me,
whoa.
1 second, Sifu.
Yeah. No coffee yet.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Right. So yeah, so I noticed an immediate difference in his style, in his
Mhm.
approach to things, and that just sold me,
Yeah.
you know. So that was it, man.
Yeah.
Ever
Well,
since
Sifu, I
then.
appreciate you being back on for uh,
Oh,
encore
I love
discussion.
this. I love this.
I had such a good time the other day that just finding out about your history and your perspective. I didn't ask you a whole lot about FMA stuff.
Oh, let's do
So
it.
yeah.
Do it. I'm ready. Look, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about the different types of daggers that we've that we you know how in the old days before you could get a rubber training dagger,
Yeah.
right? Actually, Rob Kelly was talking about this just last night, right? People used a dowel, right? But
Uh-huh.
this is stylized dowel,
Yeah.
right? Then there was a guy in the 1980s. There was a Mexican guy. I want to say his name was Chavez, but I could be wrong. Who I bought all this stuff off of him. Actually, I'll show you this too. This is my favorite Carenza stick. It's
Nice.
got this. Let me see. You see that?
Yep.
It makes a natural handle because
Nice.
it's got this bump in it right here,
Oh yeah.
right? This stick I bought, I think in 1988, right?
Uh-huh.
In all that time, it has crossed sticks with somebody else's weapon less than 5 times.
Oh wow.
Because, yes, this is my long, light stick that is meant for Carenza and for
Nice.
nothing else. The
Yeah.
guy Chavez, this was his work. He was the one that started making the wooden daggers. And so I can remember being in the car park outside the IMB
Mm-hmm.
Academy. So after the IMB opened up, after the Kali Academy closed in '84, and the IMB opened up, so we would go over there as well. And yeah, I can remember just buying stuff off of him out of the back of his truck. You know, I mean, it was just incredible stuff. So yeah, let's talk FMA training, man.
So I have a question for you because well, I have several questions, but the art, especially as Guru Inasanto presents it, is very vast, and he
Yes,
talks about that
yes,
it's broad. It can be used for combat or for Hollywood or for self-expression.
yes.
And I take my lead mostly when I teach my students. I teach it very much the way that I have been taught, which I think is probably how a lot of instructors maybe start. But you've been
Mhm.
doing this a little bit longer and you have different perspectives. How do you personally conceptualize FMA when you teach it? Are you teaching it as a functional form of realistic self-defense? Are you teaching it as like an art form?
Mhm.
So what is your thought process when you're presenting the art and when you're teaching your students?
Okay, so the art form, that's an interesting question. I think that you can become artistic
Mhm.
even if you focus on the functionality of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the art has that expressiveness, to use your word, built into it.
Mm-hmm.
So even somebody who is training it functionally, there's still going to be an artistic expression or an artistic look to it. So I don't feel qualified to teach it as an art form,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not a natural born Filipino. Right? So
But maybe
actually
your soul.
yeah, right? I was telling somebody recently that sometimes I feel like an FMA fraud because it's not every aspect of the art that I am equally into. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel the need to know and teach every single variation of double stick stuff that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my good friend Neil Colliff, he makes fun of me all the time. Neil can remember. Neil is a former Kempo guy. So those Kempo guys just have that, like Dan and Asano, you know, they just have the ability to memorize these sequences for long form one and long, short form, whatever. I can't do that. So now, if you show me Villabril 20 count and give me a couple minutes, yeah, okay, now I can remember and I can follow you in it. But as soon as we're done, I'm not going to remember that anymore, because I recognize that, and I don't know if this is actually true about, I don't even know if, is there really such a thing as Villabril 20 count? I don't remember.
I think there is,
Yeah,
because
but
there's that.
right.
Yeah.
But see, the way I look at that, that's a kata. That's a pattern that somebody put together. The same way in classical karate, taekwondo, or whatever, at some point, some person put together a sequence of movements and then sequence and joined that to another sequence, and we came up with this fixed pattern. I'm a wholesale believer in what Bruce Lee, that the sign that says all fixed set patterns are incapable of pliability or adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
He is right only if you train fixed set patterns without ever intending to break the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So if you don't, we were talking about this last time, if you don't use the pattern for something,
Mm-hmm.
if it's just, okay, we're going to do, I hate to pick on Villabril 20 count because, you know, I don't want to upset anybody or whatever, but it's like, okay, let's just do this, right? Heaven 6, heaven and earth 6, and earth 6. If every time you teach it, all you do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's it. That's a fixed set pattern. And you're always doing it this way. And that's it. That's all you ever do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is the point of that? You're not using you're not using the pattern to develop anything. I mean, at a bare minimum, look, and this is what pisses me off a lot. On the YouTube, you will see people do it. They're not paying attention to their body position. They're not paying attention to the angulation, right, of their bodies. They're not even doing a bloody footwork pattern with it, right? It's all just doing the sticks,
Yeah.
which is a phrase that we co-opted from a Taekwondo group, because I had a bunch of Taekwondo people say to me one time, go, oh yeah, we do the sticks too, right? And I said to them, good. Don't use two. You do the sticks. I train Filipino Kali.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Because they're just borrowing our stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, you give somebody long enough, and they'll learn to go inward, backhand, backhand, inward, backhand, backhand. They can pick it up. Okay, but now let me see you apply it somewhere. Let me see you use it in something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They don't know about that. So it pisses me off when people who should know better, who should do better, don't. Right? So, I mean, but I've been guilty of this in the past as well, where you just turn the camera on
Mm-hmm.
and you do whatever it is that you're doing, and then you publish it. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Now, it might still happen to me, even though I'm telling you that it shouldn't happen. It might still happen to me because, you know, sometimes these things do. But I think that if you turn the camera on, you should pay attention to it. And if you're not going to pay attention to it, then when you turn the camera on, you should say, okay, guys, by the time you see this, I want you to understand, I'm just turning the camera on. I'm not really paying attention. I'm not really doing this for publication. We're still going to publish it. So if you see me not paying attention to the things that I think we should pay, it's just because we're just whatever and whatever. You should put up some kind of disclaimer, because when you put it out there, people are going to look at it and they're going to go, well, that sucks. Right? You know, so I think that whenever it is that you publish something, you better do a section where you're explaining why it might not be up to par in that particular instance. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense. And you know, I've enjoyed your YouTube content for a long time, actually. Like, you have a couple where you were sitting with some students and you had some books and talking about some history about, you know, Guru Inosanto. But I have a few things out there too, and I don't know if I just haven't developed. I don't always know what to do with some of the responses. Largely, they're pretty positive, and
yeah,
I don't feel like I get out. I would like to think that I'm not putting it out there solely for my ego, that it is to sort of educate and show some aspects of something that, you know, for like to help share Filipino martial arts. But I usually don't reply to any of the negative criticisms, only because
well, that's supposed
difficult to do it that way.
Well, the first, isn't the first rule not to read the comments? Is that the first rule?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't, I read the comments on Facebook, you know, like when I finish the podcast. I mean, because I do tell people that on at the end that I'll review everything and answer any questions or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. I'm going in there to see if anybody has a question to answer. But I have no problem with people voicing their opinion. I mean, and like it said, everybody has an opinion. But if you weren't there, if you don't understand the context or what have you, then your opinion doesn't really matter to me as much. You know. Now, if it's the opinion, so if I was to put something out there, and then I get a phone call from Cass Magda, and Cass says, Dwight, no. Now I'm concerned. You see, because that's somebody whose opinion matters to the highest degree.
Yes.
You know, so in that kind of, but if it's just somebody else who happens to have a difference of opinion, or who happens to think that whatever it is that I did wasn't, it's like, okay, well, you're entitled to that opinion. It's only if they say something and I realize, for me, it's whether or not there's something to learn from what people are saying. That's the most important thing. If there's nothing to learn from it, I'm not worried about it. But so I'll go through stuff just to see if somebody has a point. And you can, and somebody who you know, you can learn from people who say something disparaging. They might actually be right, and then you go, oh, I didn't think of that. Maybe I should. Yeah, maybe I should correct that. You know.
So Sifu, for your FMA classes or for your Kali classes, how has it changed through the years? Because you've been with Guru now for a good amount of time, and you know, clearly there's been a certain, I like to call them eras, you know, where there's certain students that came out of certain eras, and they may have, it seems like to me, they may have focused more on Villabreo at one time, or Lameco at one time, Balintawak or whatever. And so especially as someone that's been with Guru, consistently for for so long. How have things changed, and how do you structure your own classes?
So I don't know what is what. I don't know. I don't know when he's doing Villabril versus when he's doing Lameco versus when he's doing whatever, unless he says it. I don't know, right? Um, my structure, I'll tell. Okay, I'll try to lay out my structure for you. Here's what Filipino martial arts brought to my overall martial art training. I realized that you have to start with coordination. So we take two sticks, for example, and we go inward, backhand, right? High, low, 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 high. Now, because of Filipino Kali and the way that Dan and Asano taught me, I developed what I call the concept of adding one. Paul Vunak is partially to blame for this also, for my nerdiness in this, right? So here's the first thing. Dan and Asano taught us body positioning. Tindog, the stand-in position. Katin, the half squat. Lahod, the kneeling position. Lingkod, the sitting position. And then Higda, the lion position. So I make a note of that. I go, okay, so here's what you do. We go back to that fundamental, inward backhand, inward backhand. We throw out standing, because standing is not, now I put Bruce Lee's definition of the ready position. Here are the characteristics. Upper body inclined forward, knees bent, rear heel flexed. That's the position, that's the characteristics of a position of readiness. If I'm doing my Filipino martial arts training standing, I am not in a position of readiness. So we throw out Tindog and we adopt Katin. So everything. So anybody in my class, the second I go, okay, grab single stick, everybody grabs the stick and settles down. Right? Nobody grabs the stick and goes like this, because we don't do the sticks. We train Filipino Kali, right? So that's the first. Plus, the mere action, Joey, of grabbing the weapon and going like this, that's a ready position, man. Right? Yeah. That's an attitude. That's a mindset. And as we know, mindset sometimes is everything.
Yes.
Right? So now we go back to that double stick. So maybe we decide, you know what, today we're working body positions. So we go squatting, bang, 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 bang. Then you kneel. You go on one knee and you do that same drill. Then you sit and you do that same drill. Then you lie on your back and you do that same drill. And then you do it in reverse, so that you're developing body control, the ability to go from squatting all the way to lying on your back and then doing it coming back up without breaking the pattern. You see? Now, do you think that if you give your students that ability, when you go, okay, put the sticks down, get your hands up, now we're going to punch and kick, you don't think that there's going to be a transfer of coordination ability, right? Because of that? Of course there is. Of course. That's how Filipino Kali informs your empty hands. Training through the weaponry informs your empty hands training. It lends certain things to it. Now, in empty hands, here's what people do not realize. If I'm holding the focus mitts for you and you're punching and kicking, let's say you're a beginner, you think that you're practicing the actual techniques, and you are, but you're still at the coordination level because you're a beginner. It doesn't look like it. See, when I go, so now if we go back to weaponry, when I go inward backhand, and we're doing it, you know, a few feet away from each other, you go, oh, that's a coordination drill. It's easily identified as a coordination drill because nobody's attacking and nobody's defending. But if I'm punching and kicking, it looks like I'm attacking.
Yeah.
But I'm still at the coordination level. You see? So actually the student in empty hands and weaponry is still at the same level, even though the perception, the visual aspect of it is that in the empty hands, you're doing the actual fighting technique, but in the weapons class, you're just doing a coordination drill. It's not true.
It's interesting.
See? It's not true. It's a misconception.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not yet ready to use the punching and the kicking the same way you're not ready to use the inward and the backhand.
Yeah.
Now, when you've spent time in the coordination phase, in the coordination stage, and you've done a tremendous amount of different coordination drills, now we go to the combat stage. Now, that inward and backhand becomes the angle 1 attack and the angle 2 attack. But guess what? Now the only difference is that instead of the weapons, instead of them crossing over, see, at a point between the two of us, now when you hit at me or I hit at you, it's not designed to land in front here. It's designed to land where we call in range and on target. But it's the same motion that we've been developing in the coordination stage for months or however long it took. In the empty hands portion, now we put the boxing glove on and the punching and the kicking is directed at your partner, not onto his handheld equipment. But it's the same actions. So now their weapons and their empty hands is still commensurate.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? So that's coordination stage, combat stage. Now, when you take coordination and combat and you blend them together, you get what we call flow stage. Now you're able to trade stuff back and forth. Now you're able to exchange stuff because you have the coordination and you understand the application now of those coordination moves. Now you're able to, I go, you go, right? That's where now so this is how I remember making notes of the saying. It was learn the technique, put it into the flow, add the counter, add the recounter. That's how I remember learning it. I have, I think I have 2, if not 3 variations of that, right? Let me see if I can quickly pull it up here, right? I should have thought of this. I thought about the weapons and everything, but I didn't think about pulling that stuff up because all right, let me see if give me 1 second. But essentially what it is, I took that, now I got to remember where the heck I stored it. You remember I was telling you about all the different folders that I have, right? Is it in this one? What folder is it? Oh man, this is embarrassing. I should be so much better prepared.
No, it's impressive to have so much stuff to look through.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Okay. Here we go. What's this one? Let me see. Yeah. If I was as a, can we share? I think I can share my screen with you, right? So
I'm not sure.
Let me see. I think I can. Oh no, it says that you disabled it. So yeah. But let me try to find that document. It's actually part of it. Well, the title for it. Let me see. Let me go back to the top. It's this original document is on that damaged external hard drive that I told you about.
Yeah.
So this is actually the rebuilt document. So nice. Yeah, I mean, and I worked on that thing for years and years and years. It's okay. This is one day. This will all be published as my online curriculum.
Awesome.
Right. So this is, where is it? Not there. So remember that the original was learn the technique, put it into the flow, add the counter. I have worked on that, and it has become, I still don't know where to find it. Anyhow, it's pretty much become this. Learn the technique, practice the technique, put it into the basic flow, add the counter, add the recounter. Put it into the intermediate flow, add the counter, add the recounter. Put it into the advanced flow, add the counter, add the recounter. So in other words, so if the flow drill, like I told you, is the idea of us exchanging back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
The basic flow is entry 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? Doing stuff in motion out of that.
Yeah.
The intermediate flow could be 3 count sombrata.
Mm-hmm.
The advanced flow could be 5 count sombrata,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or puño sombrata, or something else. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But you can't, but I think that in the past, we made the mistake of trying to get somebody to do 5 count sombrata when they'd been around for 2 months.
Yeah.
You see? And when I started studying the business of martial arts, I looked at how the Taekwondo schools were so successful.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was that they delivered what type of material to the students. And that's when I realized that we were making a big mistake in JKD and Kali. We were trying to give too much too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And we were not focusing on, for example, building high levels of coordination before you started the application of it. But what were they doing? They were learning katas and 3 steps and 1 steps. They were building the coordination. You see? Now, yes, they were wearing the little gloves and the little goodies and kick the crap out of each other at the end of class. But that was because they weren't using sparring for anything. They weren't using sparring to develop something. I mean, the only way that sparring at the end of the karate class or the taekwondo class, the naturally aggressive people develop something from that.
Yeah.
Not so aggressive ones just got beat up again. And they were there to learn how to not get beat up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But because the instructors didn't understand that sparring, because again, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place,
No,
Joey,
it's great.
right? When people think about sparring, they think about the variation that in the old days of martial arts you called free sparring, which meant I don't know what you're going to do and you don't know what we're going to do. We're just going to clash and butt heads.
Yeah, it's basically fighting.
Yeah. Well, you can't start there. But that's what they did in the karate school, right? Everybody warmed up together. You bow in, you warm up together, and then you split off. The white belts go over here, the yellow belts go over here, the green belts go over here, and you work on your kata and your 1 step and what have you. And then you come back towards the end of the class, you put the sparring gear on, and now everybody goes at everybody.
Yeah.
That's not how you learn to fight.
Yeah.
You see? So there had to be a better structure. So I could identify what the karate schools were doing in terms of what was beneficial about their structure and bring that into my school. You see? But then, now here's the other thing. They had black belt club and masters club for the dedicated students. We didn't have that in JKD.
Yeah.
You see? As a matter of fact, for a very long time, in a lot of Jeet Kune Do schools, everybody trained at the same time, because that's how it was done on seminar. Most of us were seminar trained. So for a very long time, you didn't split stuff up. But then you realize that the karate schools have that. And they also have, which has always been a big thing in JKD and Filipino martial arts, you know. And as you've probably seen in the JKD world, what have they done? They have adopted wholesale the belt system as the recognition system. Why? That is foreign to JKD. But if you want to have a ranking system, be a little bit more imaginative, be a little bit more innovative, be a little bit more creative. How do I give out rank without violating any Jeet Kune Do principles? And I'm gonna mess up again. Nope, I will not. So I've probably never done this with you before, but there are people out there who have heard me go off on this. So this is Inside Kung Fu. What does it say there? Can you read it?
July 89?
88.
88.
Okay. There we go. Bruce Lee's ranking system. Okay? So I used to do this with people. They'd go, well, yeah, you know, there's no ranks in Jeet Kune Do. I go, right, yeah, I agree. But Dan Inosanto is third rank, right? They go, yeah, he's got a third rank certificate. I go, right, but there are no ranks in Jeet Kune Do, right? Exactly. Bruce Lee, you know, was against belts and whatever. Right, but Dan Inosanto is third rank in JKD, right? Signed by Bruce Lee. Yes, but there's no ranks in Jeet Kune Do. Right, yeah, Bruce Lee was into ranks. Right? So if there is such a thing as Bruce Lee's rank, if you make use of that, in your Jeet Kune Do school, you're not violating anything.
Yeah.
You make use of that in some form or fashion. That's what we did, right? I even went so far as, so you know, in the karate school, you come in, you get your white belt. Your next belt is yellow, right? So how do you know that you're progressing towards your yellow belt? What do they give you every couple of weeks?
The stripe.
A yellow stripe, right? Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. Because you know how this, I mean, I haven't had to do this in 5 years, so I don't know if they still do. But you know how you could buy the tape and you could put the tape around the belt, or there was an iron-on patch, there was a cloth patch that you could iron, or you could sew on it, you know, because your grandmother's at home, she's got nothing else. You just give her the belt and you have them. So that's what we would do. We would put the stripes on the sleeve. You see? So if you come in and you are unranked, which was a name that I used in my martial arts school because Bruce Lee used it in his ranking system, right? We made a few modifications, but so you went from a white t-shirt to a black t-shirt. So your first stripe was a black stripe. Stripe number 2, and I think back then to get promoted to beginner took about 2 or 3 months. So you get that. Now, what I learned, do you know who John Graydon is? Are you familiar with that name?
He does sound familiar, but I can't place him right now.
John Graydon was the head of USA Karate here in Florida, but he was also the president of NAPMA, the National Association of Professional Martial Artists. He was one of the first guys to build a martial arts business organization. And so I remembered reading in his book, they would put the stripes on the belts, see? and then you put a red stripe when you had done the test, and now that student was up for promotion.
Mhm.
So you'd have so the white belt would have a yellow stripe, and then a red stripe, so that I could come in to the school and I could look at the belts and know who's ready for promotion.
Yeah.
So in my school, you were going from the white t-shirt to the black t-shirt. So you had wait, now I'm trying to remember how we did it. Right. So the white t-shirt had black ink. The black t-shirt had gold or yellow ink. So on the white t-shirt, you had black stripe, black stripe, yellow stripe. So I knew in the next graduation, this person is being promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. We changed the color of the t-shirt and we kept to that formula.
Yeah.
Throughout. So everything that the karate schools could sell in terms of retention and recognition and reward, I had a version of it.
Mm-hmm.
We even went so far as to create the Phase 4 Club, not Black Belt Club. You see, the Phase 4 Club. And it was everything that the Karate or Taekwondo Black Belt Club was.
Yeah.
You see, it was designed to do the same thing. The marketing of it was the same thing. Because I was getting that material from John Graydon's company, but I couldn't use it because it was all designed for karate schools and what have you, right? And so what did I do? I absorbed what was useful from it, right? Rejected what was useless because I was not going to use belts. So I rejected that idea. And then I added what was specifically my own, which was Bruce Lee's ranking system modified to suit the same stripe pattern ability. Because I realized that the striping thing, the kids loved it, right? And when I say kids, here's what I mean. The kids who were shorter than me and younger than me, and the kids who were my height, right? Some of them younger than I was, some of them older than I was, all kids. Because everybody in the martial arts school is a kid. They're just child kid and adult kids. Everybody loves being recognized and being rewarded.
Yeah, so and I think that's
go ahead.
I think that's a difference because just a difference it happens with martial arts or with everything. There's a lot of individuals, maybe like yourself.
I'm sorry I talked for so long.
No. It's very like thought provoking because there's a lot of people that are just internally driven because there's a hunger because they want to learn more, and their progression is just like I can go to let's say I'm really into lifting weights and I can go into a weight room and have my log and I go up by a certain amount of weight and that's enough for me. Or maybe I just like to lift weights and I don't track it. I just like the activity of it. But in martial arts, there's a lot of us that came and we were just so hungry and we wanted to learn, whether it's we wanted to learn more techniques or drills or whatever it is, or we just wanted to be in the presence of whoever, Guru Inasanto or whoever. But there are a lot of people that really do they need some sort of map to say like, well, I was here and now I'm in a different spot, you know, like, and I think that's for a lot of martial arts teachers and maybe especially for a lot of FMA teachers, we have to sort of adjust to that and figure out the best way for ourselves and for our students to do that.
Yep. And I personally do not believe, well, okay, I keep, see, this is the problem. I keep mixing up Jeet Kune Do and FMA because to me, it's all the same thing.
Sure.
right? You know, and sometimes I forget whether or not I'm supposed to talk just about FMA and not about Jeet Kune Do. So I have colleagues and friends who, in running their schools, have adopted the belt program, and it's a smashing success for them. I probably could have been more successful. We never hit that magic 300 student mark. We got up to like 250 or so.
Wow.
I probably could have been more successful if I had adopted the belt system, because what do people know? What does the average person out there in the world know? Black belt means something.
Yep.
So you can sell that. But here's what the average person out there in the world knows. They know that black belt means something. They also know that Bruce Lee was a badass, right? And then you go, you know, Bruce Lee had no black belt. They go, really? I go, yeah. So what does that tell you? To be a badass, do you have to have a black belt? No. Then if your child is training with me, or if you're training with me, I can turn you into a badass, but we don't have to use a belt system.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Now we're gone. You see?
Yeah.
Now we can continue. But to just go, oh, well, the public expects belts, so, you know, then I ask them. Everybody knows and loves Bruce Lee, right? Yeah. Did Bruce Lee give the public what the public wanted? Or did Bruce Lee introduce a new way of doing things? And people were like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So in running my school, I'm doing the Bruce Lee approach. I'm not giving the public what the public wants. Because here's the thing, right? You talked earlier about specific language, right? Truth is, most people, that's why it's called the general public, because they're just operating in a general way.
Yeah.
You come into my school, you got to leave that generality behind. And now we're specifically embarking on a specific journey, right? A specific martial arts journey called Jeet Kune Do. You got to drop that general approach. So I co-opted from my colleagues, the Krauss brothers in Scotland. They had a sign at the top of their front door that said, "Now entering Krauss brothers, leave the real world behind." And then on the inside, as you left, it said, "Now leaving Krauss brothers, resume normal behavior." I adopted that. I had that sign up on my doors because people had to understand. When you step through the door, we're not dealing with that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you step onto the training floor at the Inasano Academy, everything that was troubling you 2 seconds ago has to be dropped. It's got to be like that. Now, the more people do that, the more they do that, the more they take that Jeet Kune Do attitude back into the so-called, the Jeet Kune Do attitude, the focused intent attitude becomes their normal behavior. And that's how you affect people. That's how you affect change in a martial arts student. You see?
Exactly.
So that's why these things are important. And it shouldn't just be lip service. That's why Dan Asano, good gosh, he is the greatest at that. The conversations after class, oh my God. You should pay for those alone. Forget the physical training. You can do that on your own. The conversations after class.
Well, that's why things like, you know, your podcast and Dean Franco's podcast and so many other are so meaningful to so many people, including myself, because, you know, there is a complete physical and mental side, but there is the physical side of being, you know, in a class and doing your calisthenics and getting the information into your muscles and the coordination. But there really is a mental side. And as far as for myself personally, a lot of the things that I've taken out into my life how I've operationalized things in my life have come from some of those conversations.
Yeah.
So a little bit more on the Kali. Are there specific things about Kali that have also affected your life externally like that? And I know you said it's hard for you to differentiate, and I've heard Guru Inasano say that too, that he can't take his Kali out of his JKD and he can't take his JKD out of his Kali. And I absolutely think that it should be like that. But do you think there's specific things about Kali that contributed in a way that maybe flavored your experience different than just JKD alone? Or is it impossible to delineate?
I was just going to tell you, this is the most difficult question to answer. Here's why. And when the JKD people see this, they'll be annoyed. Kali is everything. Okay? I remember my Jeet Kune Do colleague, Harinder Singh. I remember when I saw he has a tattoo of the trigrams, the 8 trigrams of the I Ching, right? Do you know why that's Kali? The 8 trigrams of the I Ching?
No, okay. I don't know.
All right, here's why, right? No, was it you? I just talked about this. Oh no, it was with Dax last week. All right, so in 6 count, no, in 3 count, right? We have what? High, 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 low, high, low, high, high, low, low. That's 4. Low, 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 high, low, high, low, low, high, high. That's another 4. If you assign a continuous line and then a broken line to high and low, and you pattern that out, you have the trigrams of the I Ching. You see?
Yes.
So here is Chinese philosophy, but Kali 3 count is represent. Whoa, what is that about? Yeah. Right? And then Paul Vunak, I will love Paul Vunak for this forever, where Paul shows it on the whiteboard. High, high, high on the right hand, high, high, high on the left hand. And then he makes the list of 8, right? And then he shows you that it's not 8 drills, it's 64 drills, because you go 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 8, also 1 to 8. Then you go 2 to 1 to 8, 3 to 1, 4 to 1 to 8, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Now you end up with 64. So this happened in 1983, before everybody in the world did this. Mind blown.
And that's 64 with just, you could do that with Heaven 6 alone. That's not 64 with Heaven 6 and Umbrella 6. I mean, you could do those too, but you have 64 even just using inward, 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 inward.
Okay, so now here's the thing, right? See, okay, so now this is where I kind of depart. So remember I told you that because of the JKD influence, I am not that interested in, like you just said, the inward, inward, inward. Until and unless there's a pattern of, so here's how I teach it. Joey, I'm sorry. I can't, no. I just keep, because when I talk Kali, this is what happens. 7 ideas come into my head, and I'm talking to you about idea 1, right? And then I'm like, no, 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 no. Number 6 is more important. So I try to jump to number 6, and then because I'm old, I forget everything I was talking about.
No, but I mean, to me, it's we started off talking about the flow, and that's what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So okay. So all right. So Inward, inward, inward. Until and unless I have tested that out in combat application. So for me right now, inward, backhand is it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and anything that is a variation on inward, backhand. So by variation, here's what I mean. So let's say we're doing close six. So it's inward, backhand, inward, backhand. Now, Cass and Sifu Dan taught me this, the idea of prefix, root, and suffix.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So you can put something on the top of the inward, backhand. So I might go backhand, inward, backhand. So that is now what? The concept of adding one and the jump from a 6-count drill to an 8-count drill.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has fighting application. Whereas to know that there's a pattern that goes inward, 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 and then goes inward, inward, inward again, I don't see the fighting application to that. It's good to know. It's good brain exercise. So what Paul McCarthy is doing with cognitive Kali,
yeah,
right? I came up with that. I'm going to make a joke here. I came up with that long before he was born, right? Many, many years ago, I thought, double stick, because it forces you as a natural right-hander to become more coordinated with your left hand. It teaches you how to be patient with yourself. And if you're learning how to be patient with yourself because you're thinking, this is my arm, why can't it move the way I want it to move? In learning how to cut yourself some slack, you learn how to be patient with others.
Mm-hmm.
That's Filipino Kali.
Yeah.
At a very basic level. And then I realized that the concept of add-in one, the relationship between weaponry and empty hands, I go, this has got to be good for brain power throughout your life. I had that realization because I've been with Indesano for 37 years. I don't know if Paul McCarthy is 37 years old, right?
I think he is, but yeah.
Okay, but he's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah.
He's doing a wonderful job with that stuff, right? But that's another aspect, because your original question was, how is Kali affected or whatever, or something like that. Kali is life, man.
Mm-hmm.
It really, really is.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you're able to see patterns, for example. I have one student who said to me that the way I taught him Kali is what got him through med school.
Hmm.
He says, because the way I taught him Kali was to take what is seemingly complex and break it down to its root motions.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, and that's what I would do in med school.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Right? I mean, so if you think about it, like we just said, Villabril 20 count, you show that to somebody who is not familiar, they'll be like, that is complex as heck.
Yes.
Then you teach them 4 count, inward, backhand. And then you teach them 4 count, inward, backhand, inward. And then you show them, and then they go, oh, I see what 20 count is. It's 4 from over here, 3 from here, 2 from here, and whatever, right? Now
or
the complex.
And the beauty might be that someone else sees it and says, that's 6 from here,
Yes.
and 2 from here, and that's, yeah.
Yes. You see? So the what was seemingly complex 3 months ago, now you have an in-depth understanding of it. You're going to tell me that's not valuable in life? Come on, man. Come on. You can use that, right? Because you said you're a practicing Christian. I guarantee you, if you're trying to explain a complex religious principle to somebody who's interested but unlearned in it, you can use Kali principle to break it down
Yes.
and then put it out to them. That's got to be one of the most valuable aspects of life. But in the Jeet Kune Do world, you're not supposed to talk about Kali like this because Bruce Lee didn't have an in-depth knowledge and understanding of Kali. So Kali is not Jeet Kune Do. So Dwight, how dare you? How dare you talk about Bruce Lee and Kali and Dan Inosanto and JKD all in the same sentence?
Well, the Kali people are, the Kali people would probably have the same exact, compliment perspective as well.
Right. Yes.
It's interesting. A good friend of mine shared something on YouTube. It was like actually like a 6-hour. I'll share it with you if you don't have it. It was like a seminar that Guru Inosanto gave. I don't remember where, but it's like from 84 or 85. And they shared, it's a big clip. It's like 6 hours or something. And, I know I had initially asked you how the different eras or how things have changed, but seeing Guru teach his style of storytelling, the way he's interacting, obviously there's some differences. Actually, the physicality of the students, because they're all warming up by skipping rope. And that does not happen in seminars today. Right. But like, there's really kind of a timeless quality to how Guru is teaching the JKD and the Kali, because some of the drills may be different, but some of them are exactly the same. Some of the,
of course,
his variations in Sombrata.
Of course.
So through your time with Guru Inosanto, what are the main kind of things that you've taken away from his teaching of Kali? Like, what are if you had to say, like, there's a couple consistent things that he's always done. It doesn't have to be in this form of a drill, but in addition to maybe flow, the idea of flow, what are some of the other things that you think that Guru has really tried to convey?
Well, I mean, the cliche is a love for learning. There's definitely that. And he's done this, but I don't think he has emphasized it enough. Or, okay, I got because when you first asked me that question, it really troubled me because I was thinking, man, I can't come up with anything. Now I thought of something. In the early days, we were encouraged to work with the material. Today, there is not that much encouragement. You see?
Yes.
Now, I think it's because somewhat like Ajahn Chai. So Ajahn Chai says words to this effect. This is not an exact quote, I'm paraphrasing. Ajahn Chai says, I don't have to beat people up on seminars anymore because I have enough students out there who are instructors. They can take care of that. I think that to a certain degree, consciously or unconsciously, Dan Inosanto has arrived at that kind of position where it's like, well, there's enough people out there certified to teach who can make sure that the current crop is working with the material.
Yeah.
I think, but I'm afraid that that's not exactly happening. Here's what I'm afraid of. You go to the seminar and Dan Inosanto teaches 6 things. And he calls them, he said, this is number 1, this is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And people write that down and they take that back to their school and that becomes their curriculum. I think that people do not realize that Dan Inosanto has to organize material in order to teach it on seminar.
Yeah.
That does not make, but seminar material and your material. So you know how we were talking about how maybe you give stuff to the students at the wrong time?
Yes.
See, if Inosanto gave that to you on seminar and you figure, okay, he gave it to me, I can give it to my students.
Yeah.
You might be giving it to the wrong group of students. but it's because you're thinking of it as the material. You're not, you don't realize that, no, you're supposed to work with the material. You're supposed to analyze it and go, okay, who is this designed for? Because remember, on seminar, Dan Inosanto is teaching, as he will say, 5 different levels of people.
Yes.
You see? So there's no way that stuff that is designed to entertain 5 different levels of people is what you is. That's not exactly what you're supposed to go home and put into your curriculum in your school. No. You've got to work it. I think that there's been a lack of emphasis on that. But I understand it. It's because back then, 90% of the people in the audience were people who were destined to become instructors. 10% were people, or maybe even less than that, right? I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers there. But what I'm saying is that there were people. Let me start again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I do this to you.
No, it's no problem at all.
Okay. In 1983, I was introduced to 5-count sombrata. I had no idea what the heck was going on. But Vic Payne from North Carolina, he had been there in 1982. So he and his partner were pulling it off. You see? So I go, okay, you got to put the time in, right? And I remember I wrote it down specifically, and I put a little check mark that says commit to memory.
Yeah.
Right? Because I realized that you had to internalize it, or well, I probably didn't use the word internalize in 1983. It was probably memorize, right? But I knew that you had to memorize it. You had to do it enough that you could just come out and go with it. So I realized that you had to put in the time. But in 1983, Vic Payne was probably not an instructor, but he was on the path towards instructorship, because the whole instructorship thing probably didn't come up for like another 2 years or so, right? So so now a seminar is full of instructors. It's not full of people who are on the learning curve to become instructors. So I think that now is perhaps why he does not emphasize that you've got to work the material. You see, I think he's relaxing and thinking, okay, I don't have to coach these people on how to teach.
Yeah.
You see, I've done that for many decades. I can relax now and just put stuff out there. They'll know how to deal with it. Yeah. But I don't know if they do. I'm not convinced that enough of them do, because there's a difference, Joey, in the generations of instructors. Yeah. Those of us who came in the 80s, look, those of us who came in the 80s, we're different from those who came in the 70s. Yeah. I guarantee you. My good friend Davis Lear, who started training at the Filipino Kali Academy in 1974, he is a different breed from me, man. And added to that is the fact that they're California trained people and they're non-California trained people. Yeah. You see, so there are a lot of reasons why there can be disparate approaches to the material. Yeah. But overall, there has to be some kind of fundamental structure to everything that we're doing. Right? Everybody can't go off and do things. You know, it's like you don't take inward backhand and say that is a knife drill. Yeah. You see, you have to understand which aspects of the different areas of Kali training translate. So, okay, so I'll tell you this. This is how we look at it. The community in Miami is 65% Hispanic. So we are in some instances we are a trilingual society, right? because there are people who speak Spanish, who speak English, and who speak Spanglish,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So very aware here in Miami that there, between languages, there are things that translate literally, you know? So uno, dos, tres translates literally into one, two, three,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? But you'll have a Spanish expression that if you translate the words into English, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you have to interpret.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to what you said earlier, specific language.
Yeah.
See, right? Or what I call accurate speaking.
Mm-hmm.
There's a concept that Napoleon Hill teaches called accurate thinking,
Mm-hmm.
but I have developed, right? Because I'm like Napoleon Hill, right? A concept called accurate speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So in Kali, we will say, okay, there's motions of the stick. So I'm sorry, I keep doing this to you. Here's a if you ever hear anybody say this, they got it from me or one of my students. Okay? Kali is the art. Wait, let me get it right. It's my own saying. How can I mess this up? Wait. Glenn, I need Glenn to do this. Wait. Kali is Kali is the art of wait. I can't remember it. Oh, this is embarrassing. Don't put this up. No, I'm kidding. You can put it up, but this is what happens when you get old. But what we say is that Kali teaches, I'll modify it, right? The weapon is I can't believe this. The weapon, wait, I can do this. I can.
You're gonna remember it.
I know, right?
Exactly. Like after, like,
you
once
know
we
what's
finish.
You know what's funny? There's a phrase, there's a word for this. It comes from it's from the Latin for, there are two versions of it. One of them ends in nomina, I think, and the other one ends in logistica or something, because there's a phenomenon where you cannot remember a specific word, or a phenomenon where you cannot remember a specific name, and that's what it's called, right? I oh my God, I can't remember. Lord. Anyhow, all right, here we go. The stick is the training method. God, Dwight, the stick is the training method for itself, the blade, and some aspects of empty hands.
Mm-hmm.
You see? Because there is stuff in the stick that is stick only.
Yeah.
But there's stuff in the stick that can be sword as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff in the stick that can be dagger. And then you take those three, and there's stuff where it won't work word for word translation into empty hands, but it can be interpreted. So for example, let's go back to closed position, inward, backhand, backhand. If I fight double stick, I don't start with the left stick under here, because that's not fighting position.
Yeah.
I start with it here. So now I go inward, backhand, backhand, but from this position. You see? Now that, when I go with my right stick first, block, left stick, check, hit, I can translate that directly into empty hands.
Yeah.
Parry, right? Initial block, safety factor, killing blow.
Mm-hmm.
However, Joey, that violates Jeet Kune Do principle, because Jeet Kune Do principle, lead hand is responsible for a greater percentage of the hitting. Rear hand is the defending hand. So if I translate Kali's double stick inward backhand backhand, literally I am going to defend with my lead hand. That's a Jeet Kune Do violation.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I train right side and left side in
Uh-huh.
Kali. So now I go inward with the left hand, backhand, backhand, right? So
Yeah.
now my Kali does not violate Jeet Kune Do principles. You see? But it's
Hmm.
because Kali teaches me to be expansive, imaginative, creative, innovative, all the good vivs. It
Hmm.
teaches that.
Yeah.
This is what people don't get. This is what the sticklers for. Nah, Jeet Kune Do is an empty hands art. Inasano is adding styles, and this is what they don't get. Nobody's adding anything. People are using the additional stuff, the other stuff. They are using it. They're making use of it. You want to learn how to kick hard? Kick Thai pads.
Hmm.
And then use what you have discovered about body torque, about pivoting, about whatever. Bring it back to the JKD fighting position. And I will tell you this. The scene, I call it the power demonstration scene in Way of the Dragon.
Hmm.
It's after Unicorn Chan gets knocked out by the big bad Italian guy.
Yeah.
And the next day he says, well, I didn't see any power. Yeah, because you were knocked out, right? So then the guy holds the yellow arm shield and Bruce Lee starts kicking it. If you watch that, what he does with his arms is exactly what Ajahn Chai taught us to do with our arms in 1985. The little rotation of this, the way this one cuts back, the way the shoulder turns into it, Bruce Lee does that exactly. It is the exact motion. And you got people out there telling you, no, Dan Inosanto is ripping off, Jeet Kune Do because he's adding Muay Thai in it. No, you moron. He's using Muay Thai.
Well, and listening to you talk, Sifu, it kind of answers two of my questions actually that I've asked you already. You're very passionate response about the creativity and the flow and the openness and expansiveness. That is both, to me, something that's very obvious that you've taken and applied from Kali into other areas of your life, including other martial arts. And I really do think those are some of the things that the messages that through the many years Guru Inosanto has been teaching, not just Kali, but also through Kali, is those kinds of things that people don't always have the, like what you said, sort of like sometimes people are beginners, they can't digest. One of my favorite quotes is by this, he was a member of the Wu-Tang Clan named Ray Kwan. He said, you can't feed steak to a baby. And so one of the things that people can't always digest because of where they are from Guru Inosanto is that he is teaching creativity and he is teaching variables and he's teaching how to see and connect things.
Yeah.
But where they are is they really just want to learn how to how much of a punyo should I have when I'm holding my stick? Right. And what grip should I use with the dagger?
Yeah, well, I mean, people are going to be at different levels. So even in seminar, even at the school in class, right? I mean, but at the school, that's why you have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and what have you. But you see what you just said about connections. I'm going to tell you something. This is going to sound really funny. I use Kali when I take public transportation. Yeah. Right? Because that whole thing about root motions and what have you, right? And then the calculation. So I calculate, depending on which house I'm at, sometimes I take the bus to the train, right? Sometimes I just walk over to the train station.
Yeah.
But the same way that in Kali, you go, okay, I can go, so when I teach the kids, well, I like to use double stick because I think double stick is the area for mind expansion. So I teach the kids about 5 or 6 different ways to try to remember. So I'll go, okay, call it out for me in terms of levels. So they'll go high, high. Okay, call it out for me in terms of directions. They'll go inward, backhand. Call it out for me in terms of angle. They'll go diagonal, diagonal. Call it out for me in terms of numbers. 1, 2. Call it out for me in terms of hand position. Palm up, palm down.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? What am I trying to do with their brains? You see, it's to make all these connections, because now you go, wait. So in one country, they call it this, but in another country, they call it that, but it's the same thing? Yes. In one religion, they call it this, but in another religion, they call it that, but it's the same thing? Yes. The same way, inward and backhand is also 1 and 2, or palm up and palm down. So now they get to understand, oh, out there in the world, there's more than one approach to the same thing. This is why, I don't know if I told you this the last time we talked, Dan Inosanto teaches racial harmony. You see? So that's so that is an answer to how have I applied Kali into life. Kali is racial harmony.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Everybody wants the same thing. They have different experiences. They have different approaches to it. But generally speaking, everybody wants the same thing. So if in this culture, I just got a question on Quora about how do I get over being embarrassed being left-handed. Now, I could just answer the question and go, well, there's no need to be embarrassed about being left-handed. I could just do that.
Yeah.
What I do, I look at the name of the person submitting the question, and then I check to see what part of the world they're coming from, because Quora is not just in the US.
Sure,
it's all over the world, right? So I check to see, so maybe it's a cultural thing. But of course, the person doesn't have the sophistication to ask the question and say, in my culture, whatever and whatever. Now, if I'm a big-headed American that thinks everything is American, right? So my approach is, I answer from the American's perspective, I'm the moron.
Yeah.
You gotta be a little bit conscious about what you're doing. So you gotta be a little bit more conscientious when you're teaching your martial art. Dan Inosanto teaches that.
Yeah.
He does. It's in there. The creativity in Kali, if he says to you, okay, I'm gonna give you this drill, inward backhand with the right hand, inward backhand with the left hand. I'm going to tell you to start with your left foot forward and then step forward with your right and go inward backhand, and then step back with your right and use your left hand and go inward backhand. I'm going to give you that for 1 month. At the end of the month, I'd like you to come up, I'd like you to show me what else you came up with. You see? Yep. Now, I have done that with my students. What do they come up with? Oh, I could start with my right foot forward, and I could step forward with the left. What else do they come up with? I don't have to stay at high, high. I could go high, low. I could go low, low. I could go low, high. So it's in there. You see?
Yeah.
As instructors, we just have to be sure I'll paraphrase a biblical passage. We just have to be sure that we sow our seed in fertile ground. You see?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I can use that exercise because I see, Joey's got the mind. I think Joey's into it. And I can go, okay, Joey, I'm giving you this. The other student, I can go, okay, this one needs a little bit more help. So I'll give them 2 aspects of the drill. The next student needs even more help, right? So I'll just give them 3 aspects and tell them, don't worry about it. You see? But now, when that student who was again, biblical, because there's a story of the rich man and the sons and the talents, and the ones who built on it, the ones who dug a hole in the ground and did nothing with it, and the ones who I don't know, gambled it away and lost everything or whatever. Those are different levels of students.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Right? I don't edit this out, but I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I may not have come to this level of understanding about Jeet Kune Do and life without Kali. I don't think kicking and punching the Bruce Lee way would have expanded my mind the way double stick did.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I might get in trouble for saying that, but that's the way it is, man.
But I mean, that is your personal experience. And, you know, again, just like last time, Sifu, I'm so sorry. I'd love to continue to talk for so long, but, you know, my time is running out. But
that's fine.
I just, you know, I can't thank you enough for your perspectives, because it's simultaneously validating to me, because it's things that I've experienced for myself, you know, different things that you've said. I do think that you talked about this briefly last time, really as far as like an online presence, but I do think that you're a wonderful representative for Inosanto and how we should all be as far as his students and instructors. But you know, just your perspective and your experience, I really appreciate it. You know, all of your podcast interviews. You're so prolific, but I really do learn quite about, you know.
No, man, no, I'm prolific between Wednesday and Friday, right? And then I disappear until the next Wednesday, but it seems like I'm on there all the time. But yeah, hey, listen, I'm up for this anytime you want to. Yeah. Anytime.
Well, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. All right. You have a great day, okay?
You too.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. All right.
Take care,
bye.
Sifu.